All right, and we're recording.
Okay, do we have everyone, Kyle?
Here we go. We will. Dave's just entering now. We'll be good to go.
Okay. There he is, okay. Good morning, everyone. Hi, David.
Good morning.
Welcome to the virtual April Extra Town work session regarding the budget. May I have a roll call, please?
President Linda Penoyer,
Present.
Commissioner Sarah Franklin,
Sorry, here.
Commissioner Janet Sutter,
Here.
and Dave Williams, Town Clerk, all present.
Thank you. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, getting right down to business. First is general government FY22 budget and CIP. That is a board discussion.
All right, I can hop into it, Mayor. Everyone's seen the memo we sent out. So pretty much the way that today's meeting, we have 3 memos from the different departments, and then at the end, I'll try and reserve some time for Mr. Morgan to kind of run you guys through the budget format if you guys have any questions, the way it's laid out. But I know we have a hard cutoff for Commissioner Duckett at 12:15, correct, Commissioner? Okay, so we'll just
Yes, just thank you for mentioning that.
So I'll run through it. So pretty much for FY22 for the staffing side of the general government, we're not recommending any changes at this time. We're good with 4-time personnel, town administrator, director of finance and HR, town clerk, and the administrative assistant / deputy clerk. As you know, with that, we also have about 8 specialty firms that assist town staff across all departments, from HR, finance, government relations, media relations, whatnot. So we're looking forward to retaining all those firms in the upcoming fiscal year. And then possibly in the future, probably the next firm we look at is some sort of planning systems firm as we get toward phase 2 and 3 annexation. But one thing I did want to break out before I got too much involved, the timeline for phase 2 and 3 annexation, just working with the surveying firm that has to go out and set the meets and boundaries. We may miss the deadline to collect that tax in May or in fall of 2021. We may miss that deadline just because of when we actually will be able to get the annexation resolution out, judging by the timeline of the survey crew. So we may just have to plan for, definitely move forward with the annexation, but we're not going to have that huge chunk of change, about $150,000 to $200,000 expected to come with that for property taxes. However, we are looking at possible income taxes, possible business personal property, and then red light speed camera, plus the recovery fund. So we think with a mix of that, we can make it happen. We just may have to streamline a couple projects or defer them for later. But I just want to put that out there with the board and just be open and honest about the timeline for annexation. So we had an understanding as we go through the budget process. And this was the exact delay we were trying to avoid the whole time, but we were just finicky getting some of the final consent. And then also the surveying crew, I didn't think it would take this long, even though I had a conversation with them about a month ago to get up and running. So I just want to put that out there, and I can answer any questions on that, but before we dive too in depth. But I think just with what we have set up with the tax increases on our already tax base, once we get red light speed camera working, that'll definitely help offset the public safety costs associated with the annexation. And then next year, we just have a much larger pool to work with projects. So, but just moving forward through that, hopping over to the general government CIP, and the PowerPoint doesn't want to go anywhere. Hold up, give me one sec. There we go. So some of the initiatives we want to go through for the general government side of things, it's kind of a long list. I guess we're being ambitious, but obviously complete phase 2 and 3 annexation in case that does kind of tie into the next fiscal year. That's going to be one of the biggest priorities The next one up would probably be the election charter amendment and ordinance update. So we can get that up and running by the next election here, and probably the fall if we do shift it forward a couple months, fall 2021. Continuing building relations with county, state, federal levels of partnerships is going on, not just general partnerships, but also partnerships on projects. So we look to streetscape and some other trail initiatives and whatnot, just keeping and building and kind of fostering those relationships. Main Street Maryland designation, moving forward with that. We haven't heard anything back yet with the annexation. Some stuff we may be able to reach the full Main Street Maryland designation if we hit that 1,000 population by chance. But if not, the Main Street Maryland affiliate would be just as good, and it'll help set us up for that full designation. Looking at the vacant property tax structure, just based off, it's not recommended we move forward with this fiscal year to collect the funds in the fall of 21. Like the tax season, we're also up against the deadline for the state to actually submit that data, so they can put it on the tax bill. So that's the big deadline that's usually around early May that we're facing right now. So looking for that for next year. But in the meantime, kind of working with what the EDC said, and just kind of working with the property owners. And if they truly don't want to fill those buildings with businesses, then go after them with that. Looking at the refuse collection ordinance, that's something that's kind of been on our back burner for a while, but just putting up there what can residents put out for bulk trash, yard waste, how it's collected, when it's collected, and then if they're putting out stuff that shouldn't be collected, or if they're a repeat offender or something like that, what kind of actions that Public Works, code enforcement of the town can take. So right now we don't really have a clear document on that, so that'll kind of take its place. We can also put in some other initiatives and fun stuff such as composting, stuff like that. Bringing back in-person events is a big one too. Trying to move those forward safely, of course, and thinking how that looks like. Of course, working with the Will and the finance department on looking at the policy updates and some local minority and sustainable purchasing policies. That also kind of plays into some other initiatives. And then also just improving communication and outreach methods now that we're kind of fully staffed here at general government, and once Public Works and get some more staff as well. Deployable signs, those A-frame signs that go after reminding residents physically of town meetings, as well as just enhanced social media, putting the meetings out there. We're trying to get a bit better about putting the regular the work sessions and the budget work sessions out as events on Facebook and Nextdoor. Also using email. You guys may have seen a bunch more MailChimp emails coming out on some different town events. Landings newsletters, enhancing that, and then some new resident packets along with some other in-person events and door-to-door stuff as well. So that's a big initiative that we want to move forward with. Continued partnership with the Red Cross with blood drives, Sustainable Maryland designation, working with the Green Team, making sure they have everything they need to get through and get Sustainable Maryland in June of 2022. And some stuff like sustainable purchasing policies goes for that. Continued investment in staff development as we talk about the initiatives, the training initiatives and whatnot, moving that forward, working with the HR firm, make sure everyone has like sexual harassment training and just general growth of our town staff, especially as we grow. Also focusing in on the County Council Redistricting Commission that's going on right now. Talking with Greenwell that's going to be looking at Upper Marlboro. They, as we look to annex and stuff, I know something we've always brought forth to the county, been open about, is the possibility that we may be in split council districts, which is a very rare thing for municipalities. They like them to have one county council member. We're kind of on this weird border, and with the annexation 2 and 3, we'll actually be reaching into 2 county council districts, District 6 and our existing District 9. So it sounds like they may want to flex District 6 South or District 9 North. So that's something we're going to be honing in on, and obviously working with Greenwell and the county council on. And also working on, in addition to some CIP, some sort of, I know we've been talking about a possible downtown social justice trail for the Western Branch along, and that I think we could, if we kind of word it, targeting with park and planning, the Western Branch isn't a huge priority on their list. But I think if we could transform in some sort of social justice trail, because we have the lynching bridge is on that trail, the slave ships came up there, and just kind of, I think it could be really a county feature instead of just an Upper Marlboro feature, but we could get a lot of support from the county and state level and actually get the project moving forward if we kind of blended these two initiatives together. But that's something we can think about, and that's going to take some working with obviously the town, internal discussions, and state and county support because it's county land, and then possibly funding and grants in upcoming budget cycles. And then also emergency preparedness and the COOP plan is going to be a big thing we're going to be seeing. Hopefully we can start talking about that in July, just when we're not completely swamped with budget stuff. That's going to be one of the first things that we brush off and work with. And we're partnering with the emergency management division with the county and get that moving. But they've been busy as well with responding to the pandemic. Capital improvement projects. I'm sorry, did anyone have any questions on any of those? I can go back.
I was just going to mention that the Prince George's County Lynching Memorial Project would probably want to work with us. Well, they will be working with us anyway, but
Okay.
that I don't know what funding sources they have, but
Because they're probably going to do something at the site, right? The old bridge site is.
they like to get the community to kind of everyone involved and see how the community wants to commemorate the folks. So
Okay. That's a good point. I think in my mind we've had them in there, but I can add them in.
yeah.
All right. And just moving on to this general government CIP request. Some of these are mixed with different departments, such as how general government works, but the residential recycling can purchase 500 cans, around $21,000. They'll be put out there, and then we'll have a reserve about 200 and something as we annex or stuff gets hit by cars or taken. So that's a big push. We've been trying to push for the past couple of years, but I think we need to push it through now. So we're not keep Band-Aid fixing and sending Darnell to Home Depot. Cable access and meeting AV update. This is kind of a more minor cost, but I think it's important as definitely as we start with the outreach and connecting with the public. This will update. Currently, if you tune into Verizon channel 19, it's fuzzy. That's because it's AV on a digital system. So this update will create our cable access from AV to digital on a digital platform. It'll be a crystal clear picture. It'll also allow us, instead of taking all the PowerPoint slides, converting it to video and going forward and uploading, which is pretty much a day affair. It'll be a quick, you can adjust slide by slide as well. And also looking at some updates to the meeting room, wireless Bluetooth mics and whatnot. So when we do get back to some in-person meetings, we can have those blended meetings. That cost should cover that project. There is also an option to bring on the firm who does it. He's a local minority-owned firm, does a bunch of other municipalities. It's kind of a specialty niche market. So he charges $250 a month for him to kind of support us. So we send the information, he updates our cable access channel with real-time data, and he can also help make sure the town meetings are set up and run, and that way town staff focusing on the meetings and not the broadcasting aspect. So that's something else to consider as well. The Marlboro Volunteer Fire Department CIP grant, as discussed, they're looking to purchase a fire engine with the Recovery Act funds. I think this is something we could fund with that because they're a nonprofit responding to the pandemic. It fits in pretty well, and we can kind of divert some of the costs over to them. And then the future public safety, if we build into our budget, we could use that in future costs as well for CIP. It doesn't have to be this big, but just a one-time grant for them. Town beautification incentives. This is a couple different areas around town, focusing on the downtown. I don't know if you guys have seen the new bench we put in because the old one broke at the Showplace Arena. And so we were trying to work with parking planning and DPW&T to figure out who fixes it. We couldn't get answers, so we ordered a bench. And we actually got the Showplace Arena actually called here saying it looked amazing, which is pretty exciting. So just kind of little things like that, replacing some benches, moving forward, and possibly looking at some other kind of key areas in the downtown, such as when you come into town at 202, the Con Memorial's kind of overgrown up there, possibly bringing in the landscape firm to redo that, take some of the dead trees and put some native plants and just make it look a little bit presentable when you come into the downtown. The same thing can be done as you come in on 725, where the town kind of focus on the entrance sign areas. And then also just little spots, trash cans, recycling bins, just some small things to help bolster. We already have a 10,000, I believe, beautification, but that mainly goes to mowing and regular planting. this is just a little bit extra. And this will be blended hopefully with the $100,000 county grant we have that we're still working to get that up and moving and get some stuff cleared past the state right of ways. So those two together should really help improve the downtown area. They can also most likely partially be funded by the American Recovery Act because it's economic development. And then also the $20,000 for the town roadway design and engineering study funded from the state grant we just got for streetscape. That's just the first step in repaving the streets. Just 20,000, get a study in, have them come out, walk the roads, figure out what we need to do and some costs. But I'm sorry, any questions on the requested projects?
Kyle, I'm sorry. I was just wondering, I know that the VFD came to us with a request, like an ask. What was their ask? Just
There was no set dollar amount. In the past, we did what they referred to before. We did give them $25,000 before.
Okay.
But I figured if we did 15 up front and then maybe just I think we need to kind of aim for an annual contribution versus one time cost. So if we do like 15,000 now, then 5 or 10,000 every year moving forward, that could be a pretty good one. And just looking at other municipalities our size, they seem to grant around $10,000.
Okay.
Depending on the size of the municipality and the amount of volunteer departments that cover it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But it's going on a $600,000 fire truck, so it's it's chump change, but still it'll go a long way with that for sure.
Okay. Thanks.
And then just looking forward with some annexation, the next position we probably look to add for general government in the future is an economic development and downtown manager. That's just a no-brainer. They'd run the business licensing program. We'd shift over the food truck stuff to them, and possibly they could oversee just general business relations, recruiting businesses, working with the property owners, and working with sustainable communities on the facade improvement grant. And then they can also be the Main Street Maryland coordinator and work with the state and county economic. We just kind of need a person in that position to manage that whole aspect of the town, which I think will go a long way. So that'd probably be the next one. Another one to consider, and Chief probably talked more about this a bit, but splitting parking and code enforcement. Currently it's one job, as definitely at phase 2 and 3 in the future annexation. We'd at the point where we should probably have a full-time code officer dedicated toward just helping public works with refuse enforcement, that we could start doing rental property inspections, and kind of that would shift from the county over to the town, and that would be an extra tax credit for our the town tax differential program, and just kind of take more on with code, and then also leaving parking into the police side and just have them strictly be parking enforcement, and then they can also focus more on just meter upkeep and maintenance and helping police, I think, with traffic control, like I said, Chief can mention later, and then partner with property owners as well. If right now property owners have to tow cars off their lot because they can't issue tickets, so possibly partnering with like M&T Bank and whatnot, and actually just the town come in and write a ticket, which is a bit more friendlier than having a car towed to the Beltway lot. So just possibly going through like that, that'd be a case-by-case agreement with each property owner. And then also just looking forward as kind of also comes into the public safety sector, but a police clerk would shift a lot of the responsibility of general government that we currently do over to a dedicated police clerk, and that would free us up in our in-house staff for a lot of other things and kind of help focus the police department on the parking ticket side and general police related stuff. When people call general government, we're kind of figuring out how to point them in the right direction, but that way they're just going to a specialty police clerk in the back. So that would be a huge shift, and why we're not really having to add too much staff, because we kind of hope to see that shift off here soon. Other positions as we go forward, phase 4, 5, 6 annexation, a second administrative assistant or a dedicated town clerk, one of the two, a communications director, just to start doing the website, social media, print, all that, specialize on that and outreach, possibly an in-house planner or go with the firm, and then even possibly a recreation volunteer coordinator to help with the events and stuff like that, and work with the volunteer committees as well. And then we're also this year working to partner with the town of Morningside. We put in a interest application to the state for the Maryland Circuit Manager Rider Program grant, where they provide state staff to local governments under 5,000 population to help with their just administrative work. So a lot of them were either, some use them as town administrators, but a lot of them use them as grant administrators. So they just apply for all of their like special projects and do the sustainable grants and whatnot and help track that. So that's something we're looking with Mayor Ben Kahn of the town of Morningside's interested in partnering with us because we're pretty close to them and our size is pretty close to them as well. So that's who we put an interest application. I'll keep everyone updated on that. But they could help with police grants. They could help with public works grants. And it'll really be really good if we can get that. And also just looking forward to some other projects, CIP projects that aren't in this budget now, but maybe depending on funding availability when it comes in. And then also if obviously phase 2 annexation, we do a budget. We do a budget amendment, but the Church Street Green parking lot design, I'm working with Greenwell, get that state funding freed up for that. The Main Street Pocket Park right now, most likely only purchase it, but maybe we could have some town funds in there to make it kind of usable until we can actually get a full pocket park design. Obviously the town roadway project, the actual construction side of things, depending how quickly we can get the firm in there to design and do the engineering study and release an RFP for construction. We may do a town amendment to spend those state funds, possibly this fiscal year. And then the town community playground phase 2, we're still waiting to hear back if we got the funding for that from this year's state budget. But we didn't put it in there yet because we don't want to count our chickens before we actually get the funding. And then just looking down this down the road, future CIP projects for general government, downtown, the trail network that we've kind of talked about a bit. Working forward with that, codification, taking all our ordinances, putting it into one kind of user-friendly document that the residents can engage with instead of going to the individual ordinances. And that would be about a $10,000 upfront cost and then like an annual maintenance fee. That would be with a firm that specializes in that. A code enforcement database. Right now we're using Excel spreadsheets and Word documents. They have some code enforcement databases where it's all right there on a tablet. Very professional and work with that. And then also, as we look forward to our sustainable green, getting an electric general government vehicle, possibly with a grant, just so that town staff can use it, commissioners can use it to go on meetings and stuff like that. And we'll hopefully have a charging station here at Town Hall for it to charge with. I think that's, yeah, next is chief. But I can take any questions for the general government side, or Will, if you have anything to add, Dave, because you guys are also general government.
No, I really don't have much to add. I know the budget is the formatting of it is necessarily not here and not presentable. I think it might have been sent via email. We tried to just make sure, as far as the look of the budget, just to clean it up a little bit on the expense side, kind of have all of the classifications, not classification, or the line items kind of be synchronized into one separate area. So you'll see that a little bit with the payroll taxes and deductions for all departments of public safety, general government, and public works. They're all under the general government. However, there are ways that we can break those out, but we did that for accuracy and reporting purposes. And we did that similar to professional services as well. You will see that still the legal or attorney's fees is still budgeted right now at $55,000. I think we did add a good amount of that was because the services that we would need within the annexation process, and also with the new HR broker or HR firm who has a $995 monthly invoice as we use their HR services. So that's just something that's added and new within that area. So the only other thing I'll say is that we also, Kyle had mentioned it on one of the capital improvement items or ideas but we're looking at, if not, hopefully, potentially some more of those capital improvement items that we're looking to have in the FY22 budget. We're looking to see if they can be moved over to the American Rescue Plan funding or bill items that can be used. Obviously to continue to assist with the public health pandemic, as far as keeping less contact for our employees, trying to limit the spread of COVID-19 or whatever other strain that may be out there that is touching the community. So we're going to continue to look at those avenues, and hopefully we can be able to move some of those CIP items over to the rescue monies, and then be able to supplement or support the budget a little bit more, and potentially do other projects and do other things within the operating expense items. So that's all I have, though.
Kyle, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I don't know when the appropriate time to bring this up is, but the road improvements that we're making are needed. Marlboro Town also has roads that need improvements. And I know that's not part of this state grant. And I understand they would have to turn the roads over to us. But I think we should talk about, them getting those roads at least paved for them. So I just wanted to bring that up, and we can talk about it at a time that's better to talk about it.
I think, so I've actually talked to the town attorney about this, because I've always been kind of fascinated on the town and HOA relations, because it's kind of mind-boggling to me. But so what he was saying was, currently we'd have to revise our MOU with Marlboro Town, would be the first step, because currently we agreed we're only going to maintain Marlboro Drive from here to here. So we could definitely reopen that MOU with them. And there's probably some other things we could work with that are in the MOU from the 1980s that probably needs revised. So we could, that'd be the first step. We'd probably have that conversation with them and probably bring them to a work session and talk to them and see. And then we could always have the streetscape firm kind of look at that, those roadways as well, and just kind of give an assessment of needs. I don't think that'd be too much on it, because it's, I'd say less than a mile, half mile of roads besides Marlboro Drive over there. And they could just look in and just give some cost estimates, really. And then possibly, as we look at the cost of the whole project, if we have some funds left over and we can enter into MOU with Marlboro Town for a cost sharing over there, that could work. But we just have to see if we're paving it, but are they still going to plow it and stuff like that would be the thing. Which Darnell would, I don't know if he'd be jumping up and down for joy to plow back through all those streets. But that's something I know you can spell out. So that'd be the first step. And I think they mentioned it at a meeting, and it kind of got me thinking as well. But that would be, we should probably have them out at like the June work session or July work session.
Okay.
Just start.
We'd still be able to include it in the spending, like in the planning, because it's going to be cheaper if we just add on roads.
Yeah, because they're already going to have the equipment out.
Right. So we'd still be able to accommodate that in our budget, even if we don't talk to them until later. That's my question.
Yeah, like I said, we could ask the engineering firm to just look at those roads, and then we can look at the budget as a whole and see what we're really looking at. Yeah, I agree. That's something we can build that into the RFP.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, I'll pass it over to Chief now. And Chief, just let me know when you want slides to change. I just copied your bullet points.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to make it pretty short because I know we're pressed for time. You already have the memo. So the first ask is basically, obviously we need to hire more officers throughout the town to get us to a point where we can have a full-time permanent day and evening shift patrols, so that we can have enough officers to handle the calls for service that we're here, and that we're able handling the calls that we are responsible for. And I know this is once we annex and currently and all that. So, moving forward, we're just hoping to get the number of officers that we need to make sure that we are where we should be. The next bulletin talks about a pay scale, but I know we're going to have a separate meeting around those type of things. So I'm just going to skip that. So that one's going to be scratched off the list for this meeting. The other one is talking about authorized strength. And my recommendation is 6. And based on a lot of these bullet points is from me talking to other municipal chiefs around the county and around the state. So this is not something I just came up with, within the last 2 weeks. These are conversations that I've been having over the last several months with other chiefs and trying to make sure that our department is being compared to agencies our size and or larger, and that we're being competitive because to be quite honest with you, the way that the town has been operating a police force, even before I got here, is such that it's a police force and not necessarily a police department. And what I mean by that is the police department, you have officers that work the street, but you also have officers that do other specialty things. To give you an example, last week I received a call from District 2, the county police department, in reference to, do we have investigators? Why is that important? Because as we annex and town currently, if there's something that happens in town, it needs follow-up investigation over days, weeks, or months. We don't have the capacity to do that right now. So we need to look to branch out into an investigative person. Like Kyle had already mentioned, having a clerk or an officer that can specialize in the speed and red light camera. Even though we're not looking for that for, so to speak, revenue, it's needed because we have to keep up with those statistics. Also, each red light camera or speed camera that's detected, an officer has to sign off on that ticket as a valid violation. So we need staff to be able to do that. And that's not necessarily a civilian position, that's a law enforcement position. So when I'm saying a department, meaning we're growing out of just officers riding around and doing that. So we're building a police department. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So we'll talk about that a little bit more at the other meeting as well. And in my opinion, I think we really need to start probably within the next couple of months, seriously discussing a plan of how we can move the police department out of this building. I know it's not something that's popular. It's not something that, the residents may or may not want to hear. But if the funds are coming in and we have the capacity to do it, I think it's something that we should look to start doing, because you cannot obviously move staff of 10, 15 people into a new building or new facility or whatever in less than 30 days. This is something that's going to probably take a year and a half to do, but I think we should start having the discussions, because there are things that will have to come into play. There are certain regulations that are mandated by the state, by the county, in regards to police departments. And currently where we are, we don't meet any of those standards, because this is not designed for a police department the way that this building is set up. So had a long conversation, I'll just put his name out there, with Chief Nesky from the city of Bowie. Bowie is the newest police department in Prince George's County, even though they started in 2006, but they're the newest agency to become a police force. And there was a lot of things that information that he gave me in regards to having to move from one building to another, federal mandates, state mandates, in regards to just how buildings are set up, how things are done. So like I said, it's a conversation I think we should start having. May not be at a meeting format, but just understanding that, if we hire 2 more people, we don't have any more desks back here, and we're tapped out. So moving on to the next item is the Ford Transit Connect. It's a van. I know we just purchased a electric car, but that would be for code enforcement. The Ford Transit van is a very small van. It's like a regular size van, but it's much smaller. And that would be for parking only. And the reason why we need something like that is because we have the carts that we carry around for the parking meter collection. We could put spare meter parts in that, and we can divide the inside of the van up so that those things can be accessed easily, as opposed to trying to pull them out of a trunk of a car. Because the items that we have currently will not fit in the electric car that we have, because it's just too small. So this small van, rough cost is about $25,000. You probably get it a little less. And then probably about $5,000 to get everything in it and equipped. Obviously, this will be something that we'll look to do once we move into the next phase of annexation. I put it on the list. I didn't realize until Kyle had said that, you know, the annexation was going to move a little slower than we thought, but just something that's coming down the line. And also the purchasing of new police vehicles. As we grow the department, obviously the officers need to have the cars prior to getting here, and we should always have one spare car so that when officer's car goes in the shop or something happens, we have something that's immediate for us to, you know, have access to drive, so that officers are constantly staying on patrol and doing the things that they need to do. All right, Kyle, the next slide is a message board. Sort of like what Kyle talked about. This is one of the boards like you see usually it's on the side of the road. It's digital. We've gotten a price of one already. We can do with this, we can alert the residents and business owners and visitors of any community events, any hazards, road closures, and any things of that nature. Also, if something's going on at the sheriff's department, because they've asked multiple times, do we have a message board, because they don't have one. Even with the blood drives, the COVID vaccine stuff, you know, we can put all that up, letting our residents know, okay, be aware there's a COVID vaccine site coming up in 2 weeks, or blood drive, or whatever the case you may be. So that's something that, you know, obviously once we get our funding together, something that we could also do, I believe. And the last thing is separating our IT network currently from the town's network, because as we move forward with body cameras, speed cameras, and things of that nature, all of this information has to be able to be housed on a server. And we've already gotten a quote for that, but you know, that may need to go up, because what we didn't anticipate was some other items that probably will need to be addressed as well. But obviously, as the funds come in, we need to be on a totally separate network from the town, so that one, we could have the capacity, and then the town could do what they need to do with their capacity. So that's pretty much it, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Chief, I'm sorry. I just not sure if we're talking about this in the next meeting, but what is your total staffing ask? Like, I'm just comparing, like, the budget, there's police chief, sergeant, corporal, two first PFCs, and the code officer. Are you asking for more than that in your, sorry.
So yeah, so basically we should be at 6 with annexation.
Okay.
So we should be at 4 right now as the town sits currently. You should have at least 2 officers on the day work shift and 2 officers on the evening shift.
Mhm.
That's a good number to start with. So we're obviously behind that. So I'm just saying adding 2 more officers as we annex phases 2 and 3. So that's why I'm saying we should be at 6 with phase 2 and 3 coming in, because I'm just assuming we're already in phase 3. I mean 2 and 3, because all we're waiting for is a few more months. But so we should be at least 6 right now. But as things continue to progress and grow, or if other issues come in and revenue, we'll just have to offset those numbers. But
so you're saying 2 more PFCs, and then the investigator and the clerk are 2 other separate positions.
right, I'm talking about just 6 police officers. The other positions are separate.
Okay. Thank you.
And those positions will change probably at our next budget or our staff meeting, whatever the case may be, because based on a lot of the reforms that the Maryland legislature put together, it's going to force us to have to make some adjustments on that. So, you know, we'll talk about that at that particular time.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief at this time? Okay, hearing none, let's go to Public Works.
All right, good morning, everyone. We have a hard stop for I'm not sure what that is. Kyle, I'm just going to read from the memorandum and use the PowerPoint just as a reference if anyone needs it. All right. As far as fiscal year 2022, without annexation, just looking forward, just trying to be prepared. Our first ask from Public Works is a Chevrolet 6500 HD dump body vehicle. Thank you, Kyle. Picture below. This vehicle is needed to upkeep with the demand of our bulk. Recently, especially as we approach the warmer summer months, we've been faced with numerous trips to the landfill and taking more than one vehicle. I personally made 3 trips to Maryland Environmental yesterday. As the town looks to expand its footprint, those trips are slated to increase exponentially. And with the addition of this vehicle, we'll be able to also run a larger plow and spreader apparatus and free up our current dump body for everyday use. I believe the estimated cost, and this is just an estimate as I'm waiting for the full price out from Chevrolet, is $100,000. I actually, one part that's not in this, when and if we get this vehicle, I think would have rebrand our public works department. While we have the person out here, you know, putting the graphics on it, I think it's a perfect time to actually convert our current fleet to the actual public works sort of decal, along with the town website, the town email at info@uppermarlboro.md. And also just to get a better understanding whether we are able to do a long bid or what have you with the DOT regulations. I'll be taking a trip up to Criswell within the next couple of weeks to sort of get familiar with it. Our second ask is a Brymar dump trailer. The same with the dump body truck. It's a versatile trailer that is needed to upkeep with the increasing demand of Yahweh's days. Just as I said a few moments ago, made 3 trips to Maryland Environmental, and that's slated to definitely increase as we expand. So that's waiting in line 3 times. That's fuel for 3 trips, 3 loads, 3 unloads, which this trailer will definitely help us cut down on. The estimated cost is $12,500. All right, as we, you know, sort of grow our staffing levels, our next task will be a leaf back. With our current operation during the fall, we blow the leaves that accumulate on town properties to adjacent woods nearby. This is normally done in vain with high wind events or due to our neighbor, the school board, not removing their leaves. With the addition of this leaf bag, we'll be able to quickly remove debris from town property altogether. And if staffing allows, we could potentially move this operation into neighborhoods and remove debris, remove leaves and debris blown to the street edge by residents. Our next ask is something that technically we've already received a quote for, and that's quarterly street sweeping. Of course, that removes debris from the gutter and the roadsides that would otherwise go into the storm drains, causing water pollution. Due to litter and the deterioration of the roads within town, the roadsides are packed with gravel and dirt that rain carries straight into our already inferior storm drain systems. With the removal of this debris, we should see a slow decline in flooding and area ponding and an improved overall cleanliness of the town. And via a quote provided by the Sweeping Corps of America, that is 6,400 per year. The next ask of Public Works is a gas or an electric cart. These carts prove vital during the week leading up to Marlboro Day. The crew used them for litter collection, transportation of event items through barricaded entrances. One of them even transported our 100-gallon water tank and pump to flower bed locations around town, and we even moved a large commercial generator trailer from Public Works to Governor Odin Bowie Drive with ease. One of these carts will be an efficiency boosting addition to Public Works in our Go Green initiative. And for something like this, the cost new, depending on what type we get and the capacity, is somewhere between 20 and 25,000. Used, you can normally find them around 12. Our next ask is paving for the Public Works facility. Currently, our facility has multiple layers of bluestone aggregate. This loose material is prone to shifting and can be overrun by erosion, which is currently happening. And it also ponds during heavy rains and becomes a mud hazard. By paving the yard, we can create curbs and funnel water where we want it, thus virtually eliminating the possibility of our office flooding again in conjunction with proper drain cleaning. As we grow and maybe this yard just becomes a satellite yard, if we are planning to move that forward sort of quickly, we can actually, instead of paving it, we can use it's not a bluestone, but it's a sort of asphalt millings, which packs tighter and holds together a little better. But if we aren't planning to move Public Works, paving would definitely be the best way to go with this. And last but not least, we have added positions and compensation. It is well known that our Public Works staff has been unsatisfied due to being understaffed, in addition to what they feel is being underpaid. For our current footprint, we need a total staff of 5 to become effective in our duties. This allows employees to, at bare minimum, pair up and work independent of me. This will also allow me to move adequately between supervising and evaluating their abilities to carry out objectives that I've set. We are also looking to establish a foreman and a crew leader position to oversee 2 maintenance worker 1 positions. To establish a basis, the chart below serves as a model to compare salaries of 5 other municipalities whose structure somewhat closely resembles what we have been looking for, with a base, midpoint, and max salary. I also want to point out that our current maintenance worker 1 salaries, after being here 3 years, hover slightly above these municipalities' starting point. And again, our guys have been here for 3 years. Just sort of a food for thought sort of thing, as I touched on, especially moving forward with annexation. We're definitely going to need either an addition at our facility, which I believe we are currently maxed at our land capacity. So we would definitely need a new facility, as we currently have no more desks or anywhere to put anyone. Along with that, sort of the rule of thumb, just talking to the other directors, we will need new pickup trucks or transportation vehicles. Sort of the rule of thumb post-COVID is 2 per vehicle. And with the staff of 5, unless we, use the dump trucks every day, we're not going to have the vehicle capacity to keep up. Any
Donnell, I'm sorry, what vehicle capacity would you need for a staff of 5?
For a staff of 5, we're at least looking at one more pickup truck.
And I think you answered my other question, which was whether you have room for 5 people in that tiny building, which the answer is no. Yeah.
Not really.
Okay.
If there are no more questions for me, I thank you for your time.
Hey, Darnell, there are a couple other slides here about the other option for the dump body. Did you want to go through those or?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I felt bad skipping through slides. Seems like you put some more. So this is just a picture of all 3 trucks at one of the loads to the dump.
Yes. This actually happened quite a few times last year when on Monday mornings, our current stake body just isn't able to keep up. So we're left with using all 3 vehicles and our 2 trailers. Again, that's 3 people away from town in case of an emergency. That's 3 people that had to be away from other duties. That's fuel. That's increased wear and tear. Just this is not the way, especially if we're going to expand, that we should move forward. And if you want to go to the other slide with the other option for the vehicle, the other option for the 6500 is to actually do a switch and go body on the back of it. Of course, that is an increased cost. Just for the system itself adds roughly $20,000 to the price of the truck. But with this, instead of doing stake body rentals, we could actually just rent the can. As you can see in the picture below, they actually have a trash truck body for it. As I know, that idea has been kicked around, sort of getting back into that. And also, at this current size, it would just be a medical DOT card, and it's non-CDL based. This is the largest we can go without our staff having CDLs.
All right. You just mentioned staff having CDLs. Is that something they should have, or is that something we should discuss at the meeting about staffing?
Moving forward, that is definitely something we're going to want to have, because especially after this annexation, I don't see us getting any smaller. And I don't know if the plan is to, well, I know the plan isn't to stay with annexation 2 and 3. So moving anything past that, we would definitely need something larger, which will require a CDL.
And sorry, this is going to sound really dumb, but that's a commercial driver's license, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
We're
thank
going to
you.
include that in the incentives and training resolution we're planning on. I talked to Darnell about comparables for other municipalities. They usually cover the cost of obtaining the CDL, because there's a cost and training program, and then also just a premium pay for maintaining that as well. So that's something we should probably be proactive, even though we don't have the trucks now. Just putting it out there for the staff to start working on now.
Thank you.
No problem.
And we'd only go Class B license, right, Darnell? We don't need the full Class A.
Correct.
And I think this was the only other slide, Darnell.
Yeah, that's just a quick breakdown for each of the vehicles.
Sorry, it's Sarah again. If drivers had CDL, this vehicle, this 6500 HD dump body vehicle, is still going to get used, regardless, like, so if we get CDL, we might also get a bigger vehicle, but this vehicle wouldn't be like obsolete.
Right.
Okay.
For this vehicle, you would not need a CDL unless
Mhm.
you decided to convert the dump body to something larger on the back. Anything past, if I'm not mistaken, 22.5 or 23,000 pounds, you will need a Class B license.
Okay, so we would always have staff who has CDLs and doesn't have CDLs, so some would still use this truck. I'm thinking long-term investment wise.
Yes, with or without a CDL, you can use this vehicle. Mhm.
Okay.
And I think just to put in perspective, but darn correct, but most public works facilities probably about our size. Usually the director of public works, the foreman, and then maybe some senior crew members have the CDL.
Yes,
And then the others usually just drive the pickup trucks and the other smaller vehicles.
that is correct. Unless someone else actually comes in the door and we can do a pay incentive for them already having their CDL. Yes,
Thank you.
no problem.
Any other questions? Val, do you have anything else to add? Cal, do you have anything else to add to this discussion?
Not this time. Oh, I did have one request for the board. Just as we're looking most likely to expand with the next budget season, would the board be opposed with us advertising some like public works crew member positions now? Obviously knowing we would not hire them till after July 1, but just to kind of get a jump on things, would the board be opposed to that?
I have no problem doing that.
They're in Will's budget and the budget is balanced. So I think that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, we just don't want to wait till July 1st and then start doing it. We'll at least start collecting some resumes and get some interested people. And that way, I mean, if the budget falls through, there's just no hire, but just be proactive.
Yes, I agree.
I think we have to talk about
I'm for it.
salary chart too first, or at least before we start advertising salaries, because yeah.
So we could definitely put the position, but obviously having the discussion next month about the salary positions, but we could just put it out there with a range of what we have now for entry level, put out. And obviously once that could get adjusted after next month as well. So
And just to be clear, Kyle, that's an addition of 2 full-time, correct?
correct. Yeah, we just open it up, I guess, just crew members, and just hopefully select 2 of if we get 5 applicants or something, we'd hire 2 of them. So we just put the call out there for crew members, and just put it in there. They're not going to start till after July 1st.
And my other question is the handbook. Will that be the new handbook? Will that be in effect by July 1?
Yes, that's the goal. Is to we're going to be discussing it next week at the work session. And we obviously have the document open for everyone to comment on. Work with the HR firm, and the goal is to have it adopted at the Maytown meeting. Hopefully, if everything goes smoothly and all the updates can get made. All right. Well, that's all I had, Mayor.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to add to this? Or any questions? It's given everybody a lot to think about, I'm sure. Go ahead.
There's one thing that I wanted to bring up, which is the contracts, the professional services. I'm wondering how, I know that the auditing services, that we have a contract with them right now. And we just engaged with human resources. But I feel like most governments review their contracts every so many years,
Yep.
and maybe put out new RFPs to try and make sure they're getting both the best services and the best prices for those services. I was wondering when the last time we did that with all of these services was.
Sure. So our rule of thumb is kind of 2 years. The only one, let me see, Greenwell has been redone and an RFP put out for Greenwell in the past couple of years. We revised their contract with, I know when Commissioner Bernardo Leclerc was here. Media relations is less than 2 years. Sorry, I'm just flipping to that page.
Everybody would just renew, not everybody, take the back.
Yeah, I think only the town attorney is past it. But that's something I guess we were thinking of doing that's upcoming year, was putting an RFP out there as well for that if the board wished, unless they were satisfied with services. But I think our rule of thumb is every 2 years putting it out there. And we just did the healthcare broker as well.
Okay, yeah, that's right. And sorry, I think the attorney, I mean, even if we are satisfied, I think if we haven't reviewed it in a while, we owe the public to be reviewing it. But the other one I had a question about was the payroll processing, because the HR brought that up, the HR firm. Should we look at, once we get through the handbook, look at the company that they were recommending and see if the pricing and services are better? I guess it's a Will question.
Oh, I don't know who. Yeah, I don't mind doing that. Who do you know who they were recommending?
I can't remember.
I can't remember the name either, but they did recommend that's who they use. But I know we've had some technical issues with ADP, at least staff accessing and whatnot. But so, because we last did ADP, I think was 2018 was when we switched from Paychex to ADP.
So maybe like the attorney in ADP or attorney in payroll we can look at here.
Yeah, but I would say that payroll isn't something that you want to do every 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you probably won't want to touch payroll every 2 years. And I'm not saying that we can't look at it. Most
that
certainly.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but payroll is one of those things that, unless you're having major issues, you probably won't want to touch that, because it can get tricky, not as far as changing over payroll, making sure all of not the 1099s, but the tax documents are getting transferred over properly. That was a issue when I came in 2018, but providing W-2s for everyone. Their first W-2s, the first document of their W-2s were all shorted about 3 or 4 months, because the first quarter of their wages and compensations weren't calculated properly from Paychex to the ADP. So I'm not saying just the first year can be some issue. That's when you can run into issue with transferring all that information over as far as personnel, HR information from the employees. So,
Okay.
but yeah, they I don't remember who they said. Most certainly, we most certainly can look at it. For instance, our software that we use in QuickBooks, technically QuickBooks does have a payroll side to it. We don't pay for it, but that might be something that we can look at as well.
And I mean, if the company insuredy works with takes work off of you, I haven't necessarily heard that staff is all in love with ADP. So maybe that's just something not to like really go out on an RFP on, but for you to kind of see with insuredy what you think. I think we should do it for, I guess when we're doing the next round of whether it's 2022 or whatnot. But I'm saying, if we were saying do the consultants or whatnot every 2 years, we probably wouldn't want to touch payroll every 2 years. That makes sense. I hadn't really,
I think the town attorney was selected, I think 2008. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, was the last time we searched for new town attorney. Obviously we haven't had any issues, but if the board wanted to go forward and put an RFP, we could do that at any time. It doesn't have to be tied to a budget season, because we know we have a set budget amount, and usually town attorneys, they set like the hourly rate and whatnot. They have rates set, not and by how much we use them. not like a set amount every month.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the other commissioners think, but I just think, we're raising everyone's taxes and, we've had him for a long time, which is great, but we should see if, we're seriously overpaying for services and we could get an equally good service or not. You know what I mean? I just think to be responsible to the public, we should be reviewing all of the contracts, even if we're happy with the people who are doing them.
I specifically think in regards to the attorney, because it's been this length of time, I would definitely in support of reviewing that particular one. Just also, I think it makes sure that we keep people on their toes and that they're actually fighting for the town in a way that, they don't get too comfortable. Sometimes you hold on to contracts and people get a little bit too comfortable. But I totally agree with Mr. Will in regards to the payroll side of things. That's not something I know we want to touch every 2 years. And I think whatever he's most comfortable with and that he knows that's working for the town and provides the needs and services, I think that's probably the route that we should go. So I don't know if ADP, the only question I would have is I know that in terms of training, staff training, some other payroll platforms have staff like compliance training attached to it, which would be, something that would be ideal so that we could just have that training that staff could just automatically log on to. Insurity may also provide this, but I'm sure they do because we discussed it. So I don't know. Will, I'm not Will, I'm sorry, but Kyle, since we're on this, has Insurity touched bases with us in regards to staff training and department training?
So that's always been a discussion topic. I think right now they're just focusing on the current town clerk job search, the handbook, and incentives. But I know after we get all that through, that's going to be a big push, is getting some routine trainings in for department heads and staff people. But just right now their focus is on kind of those more major areas. But the discussion has always been after we get through kind of this April, May, June scenario that's going to be their main focus, is trainings.
Okay, so April, May, June. So are we talking about like after the hires in July, or, for Department of Public Works, or is that what you're thinking?
I think, yeah, after probably mid-July, once we see some new people come in and start doing those staff trainings so we don't miss, because like you said, we're possibly bringing on some police staff and some public works staff, and that'll be a good time to kind of capture everyone for some of the core training, such as like sexual harassment and whatnot, and just basic ADP overviews. Because we used to do quarterly staff trainings before the pandemic, where all the staff came together for an afternoon. And we talk about different topics. I know Will did a bunch of stuff, ADP discussions. We'd have the healthcare people come in and talk. So I think that's something we're going to want to get back into starting in July.
Okay.
I just had a quick question while we're on this. Is Insurity, and if so, what is going to be Insurity's role as far as the hiring process?
We work with them case by case. So like for the town clerk department head position, that's kind of set up a bit differently. And Will, correct me if I'm wrong, but the big thing is they'll help us post the job. They're obviously looking over the job descriptions, the handbook, but they also do after we select people, they do the actual background checks and onboarding process. Will, is that kind of correct?
Will looks a little frozen.
Yeah, he's frozen. Nope.
I may have been paying something else.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, I'm here. What was that?
No. Darnell asked what's Insurity's role in the hiring process, and I told him it's kind of they help with the advertising, and then after we do the interviews, we conduct the interviews, and then they kind of do the background work and the onboarding process.
Okay.
Is that correct?
So, yeah. So Insurity's role is more so they are, I guess we would just more so call them assisting with the onboarding at least for the most recent hiring that we look to do, assisting with the onboarding. So what they've been able to do is kind of make it a little bit easier. Instead of having a lot of paper documents that we have the individuals fill out, each employee is able to have their own profile, personnel profile on a website or a site that they have for the town of Upper Marlboro. So that individual can go in there and put in their name, address, driver identification, their I-9, their W-4, direct deposit information, and we can easily extract that information and plug it into ADP or any other site that we need to have for the employees' benefit package as far as real estate retirement. So they've so far when applicants apply for a position that we may have vacant or we're looking for someone to fill, myself, Kyle, and Insurity are all on this email chain, and we keep I guess some form of a file of those individuals that have applied for the position. And thereafter, myself and Kyle and whomever, depending on the department, set up the interviews of those candidates. Once we decide on which candidate we would like to kind of keep on moving forward with the process, we reach back out to Insurity, and a part of that onboarding process is to make sure that each employee completes and successfully completes the pre-employment requirements. So that's your drug screening and your background checks for the most part. And that's what Insurity handles. They contract with a company or a vendor, I'm not exactly sure of the name, that handles all of the background checks and drug screenings as well. So they really make the process easy and seamless as far as how they can be able to navigate through those things for these the civilian employees. Now, if it's a police officer or a sworn officer, then that's a little different. We haven't crossed that border or barrier just yet, but I know Chief will have a lot more to do with the background checks and drug screenings and whatnot if it is a police officer. So I hope I answered your question, but in a nutshell, that's what has happened thus far in the hiring process with the town of Upper Marlboro and the partnership of Insurity.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I was just gonna say, but it's still on the town of Upper Marlboro to decide who's the best candidate and the best fit for, our operations and for the constituents of the town.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I think that this gets us out just about the time Janice needs to leave in the first place.
Thank you. Not trying to rush everybody, but thank you.
No, we did very well actually going through all that in that length of time. I appreciate everybody on the call. We have a lot to think about, and thank you again for joining us. Any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
See you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Too. Thanks, guys.